So I went to my son's class. I was a room mother. And this little girl, Annie, came running up to me. She was just a little tweak of a little girl. And she had freckles and red hair, and she was so cute. She gave me this big hug, and she said, "Oh, you're Rafe's mother. Everybody says you're so..." And she hesitated. And I filled in the blanks. So nice, so pretty, so sweet. Everybody says you're so old. And I wasn't. So today we're talking about you can heal. And what I want to say is that this is not about metaphysical guilt. We sort of waltz around the idea that we can heal, and then we talk about, well, there's a difference between healing and a cure, blah, 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 blah. However, religious science is powerful in that it gives us tools to heal. And I think it's so important to have that conversation. And it's about healing on all levels. Physically, yes. Our body, our mind, and our spirit. Our life can be in need of healing. Our relationships can be in need of healing. So we're not talking necessarily limited to physical healing, but that's a big component of religious science. Ernest Holmes said this: to heal means to make whole. We seek to heal humans' mentalities, knowing that the degree in which we are successful, we shall also be healing their bodies. Belief in duality has made humankind sick, and the understanding of unity will heal the human race. Realize that you are a divine idea and that your word is the law. And here's another quote from Ernest. Healing is not creating a perfect idea or a perfect body. It is revealing an idea which is already perfect. Healing is not a process. It is a revelation through the thought of the practitioner. There may be a process in healing, but not a process of healing. The process in healing is the mental work and the time it takes the practitioner to convince himself of the perfectness of his patient, and the length of time it takes the patient to realize this perfectness. So that's the whole concept behind healing, and it is a revelation, a revealing of the wholeness, which is absolutely our nature, because we are God. We're part of the whole. We are the whole. We're it. We're the godness that permeates all things. And when we forget that, when we start believing in duality, then we get into trouble. Duality has no reality. Hey, it's a little rhyme. Duality has no reality. But we entertain the possibility. We think that for some reason or other, there's them and us. There's this and that. And the truth of the matter is, it's all the same thing. It's all the same. And when we absolutely are clear on the wholeness, then we are in a place of healing. We are whole. So Ernest also said, disease is a fact, but not a truth. Disease is a fact, but not a truth. It is not an eternal reality. It was a fact in human experience for ages that people did not broadcast over a radio, but it was not a truth that they could not It was not a divine reality, because had they known how to manufacture a radio and talk over it, they could have broadcast at any age. So we must try to see and sense that always, back of the appearance, perfection is. Perfection is always back of the appearances. And we can't have a whole, well-functioning, happy life when we believe in duality, the them and us, the them and they. It's all the same. We are one. Our spiritual leader, Dr. Ken Gordon, wrote in this month's Science of Mind magazine. I love the way things all work out that way. I mean, it's like he wrote this article for me that I could share with you. And it's on the table there, so feel free. So he said, one of the greatest discoveries I have made is that disunion in form results in conflict. If I have a disorder of some form, and I allow my subconscious mind to allow discord around it, I have found that inevitably it grows. He then gave this example of having the flu. He says, I feel miserable, I ache, I'm nauseous, and my body hurts. When I do my contemplation around it, on the surface, I intellectually understand it and stoically say things like, this too shall pass, or ask myself what I need to learn, or simply pretend that I'm okay with it. But if I go deeper in thought, I discover I hate it. The moment I discover this and uncover this belief, I began down the path to healing. Why? Because the body cannot stand divided. The flu is not separated from who I am, and my hatred of it is self-hatred, and self-hate is destructive. All healing comes from love. We believe the unity of all life and the highest God and the innermost God is one God. So we can extrapolate that whole concept around flu into every area of our life. When we absolutely recognize that anything that we are resisting is ultimately self-hate. It's ultimately self-destructive. And when we get to the place that we understand that concept, to hate anything is self-hatred. To hate anything is self-destructive. Because it's all the same. It's all one. You and I are the same. We're in the essence and the wholeness of God. And so anytime I find myself resisting someone's behavior, I really need to, and I don't always, I have to confess, I really need to turn within and understand clearly that when I am judging people negatively, I am judging myself negatively. I'm judging God negatively. We are one. Oneness is the secret of everything. It is the secret of healing the flu, and it's the secret to healing the world. Remember, healing means wholeness, and we cannot manifest wholeness by living in divisiveness. We cannot manifest wholeness by living in divisiveness. Some of you may remember Gerald Jampowski. He was, in an article that he wrote, Living and Loving 1 Second at a Time, he wrote, for me, the most common denominator in all healing is God. And because God and love are one and the same, the common denominator in healing is love. The common denominator in healing is love. To heal and be healed is to walk each day, each hour, each second with God. It is to recognize that God is our only true relationship. God is our only true relationship. To heal is to recognize every encounter with another person as a holy encounter, seeing only the holiness in that person. He continues, at the Center for Attitudinal Healing in Trevion, California, we define health and healing differently. Peace of mind, peace of God is our only goal. We define health as inner peace, and healing is letting go of fear. Remembering that God is all there is. There is no divisiveness. So when I find myself resisting, disliking the behavior of, or being in judgment of someone else, I truly am expressing self-hatred. That's hard to swallow sometimes. It's hard to understand clearly and incorporate that whole concept. Some of you remember Bernie Siegel, who's a retired surgeon. And he writes about the relationship between the patient and the healing process. He's known for his best-selling book, Love, Medicine, and Miracles. And he said, regarding him healing, where love thrives, miracles happen. Where love thrives, miracles happen. So he tells the story about his dog, Oscar. And Oscar had a malignant tumor. And he had taken Oscar to the vet. And the vet said, he's miserable. You need to put him down. So Bernie Siegel called his family and he said, I just wanted you to know that the vet says it's time for Oscar to be put down. And the kids said, what? No, you wouldn't put a patient down if they had a malignant tumor. Bring Oscar home. So Bernie Siegel took Oscar home and he loved him, he petted him, he sat with him, he nurtured him, he fed him by hand. He loved Oscar. He loved Oscar. And before long, Oscar was up, playing around, and he lived for 3 more years. So he considers that when he says, as well as Ken Gordon, when we see our disease as an enemy, we empower it. When we see our disease as an enemy, we empower it. When we include it as part of the whole of ourselves and recognize that any sort of disease is our bodies trying to come to balance, trying to reach a balance. So there was a time when Bernie Siegel was very much involved, and he still is, in visualization and using visualization to cure people and to help them come to healing. And he originally had encouraged people to see their disease like the enemy, and those little, what do you call those little yellow things that chopped up everything? Pac-Man, yeah, these are Pac-Man. Or having swords and fighting the disease and making it the enemy. And he said that rather than seeing yourself at war with your disease, envision it as a block of ice I love this. Think of your disease as a block of ice, and then imagine God's light shining on it and melting it away. He says that is so much more powerful for coming to a place of healing than making an enemy of your disease. Incorporating it and including God's love and light will be the healing factor. He talked about, he had a patient who was a landscaper, and he had a malignant tumor that needed to be surgically removed. And the landscaper said, well, you know, it's spring. I think I'll just go home and make the world more beautiful. And when spring's over, then I'll come back and we'll do the surgery. And so in a little short bit, he came back and he said, you know, I still have things that I need to do in my garden. I'm not quite ready to have the surgery. So Bernie Siegel lost track of him, and 20 years later, this man came with the same name. And he said, oh, and his nurse handed him the record. 20 years ago, this fellow had a brain tumor. And Bernie Siegel said, oh, you know, you've got the wrong patient. This guy should have died years ago. Well, he wasn't a different patient. He had gone home to make the world a more beautiful place and continued to live another 20 years. And he died a couple of years later from some obscure thing like getting run over by a truck or something like that, a landscaping truck. So I told another story of a patient, a similar circumstance in a similar situation. This fellow had inoperable cancer of some sort. And he said, they were in Florida, and he said, I don't want to die in Florida. I think I'll go to Colorado. So he went to Colorado. And Bernie Siegel hadn't heard from him, and hadn't heard from him, and hadn't heard from him. And he called up, and he said, hey, how are you doing? And his patient said, you know, it's so beautiful here, I forgot to die. So that's the essence of it all. When we live in love, when we live as fully and richly as we can, when we live in expectation, then we forget our disease. Remember, dis-ease, D-I-S, ease, lacking in ease. One of the things that Bernie Siegel teaches, and I think is so powerful, is that words have so much power. And he suggests that we write words, 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 without space. Words, 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 words. And when you look at that, it actually says swords, 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 swords. Knowing that how powerful words can be, what we say to ourselves and what other people have said to us. He talked about a study of a major medical teaching facility, and they did a study of interns, and they asked interns how many of them had been verbally abused when they were younger. And then they took that figure, and 20 years later, they made a comparison. And the interns who had been verbally abused were horrendously more likely to have a chronic debilitating disease, like 40% of them, something like that, huge. But the interns that didn't report having been verbally abused, their chronic disease level was some low minuscule number, like 5%. So the words that we say to our children are like swords, but more important, the words that we say to ourselves are like swords, and they're killing us. When we despise ourselves, we are setting ourselves up for disease, dis-ease. And that's the truth for every aspect of our lives. Words are powerful. There was another woman that he talked about, and her mother was very, very cruel and abusive and dressed her all in black and told her how ugly she was and how worthless she was, and she didn't deserve anything in life. Well, this woman had a chronic, debilitating, life-threatening disease. And when she got the whole concept of words as swords, she went out and she bought herself a red dress and some red heels. And she cured herself. She was healed. Because her internal language changed. Her internal language was more positive, and she felt more beautiful. Siegel advises us to do two things. He advises us to choose life, and also to abandon your past. So what does that mean? That means to choose life and live in the present moment. Choose life and know that this is the moment. And in this moment, always in this moment, there's peace, there's harmony, and there's joy. When we live in the present moment, we are filled with joy. If we choose it, we're always at choice in the present moment. So I just want to tell you this last little story about a doctor who was asked what the best prescription for healing might be. And he replied, love. Love is the best prescription for healing. And then the question came, well, what if it doesn't work? Increase the dose. So, you know how simple it is, how hard it is to live in love, to live from that place of open-heartedness. Because when we are in love, when we live in love, we give it and we receive it. And the channel of spirit is open to us. But when we are in judgment, when we are critical of ourselves or others, and remembering it's always self-criticism, then the whole channel shuts down and our whole body stagnates. And the circulation of life is not able to move through our body, through our lives, and through our spirits. So, my prescription for you today is to love. And I love each one of you. Namaste.
Namaste.
So I would invite the practitioners to join with me as we hold this community in love. I invite you to just allow yourself to go to that place in your body and your mind and your spirit where love resides. Feel it. Create that feeling of love, of joy, of caring. Feel it for yourself. Feel it for your neighbors. Feel it for the community of Circle's Edge and the community at large. Love yourself. Because it's all the same. I invite you to sit in the sweetness of that. To let love bubble up within. Allow the light of God to shine within and melt any place that you may be feeling stuck or harsh or angry. Just let the light of God warm that place. Heal the divisiveness. Knowing that love is the prescription. And you can always increase the dose. Increase the dose for yourself. In all circumstances, situations, and people that you may resist. Hold your heart open. Let the love flow in and the love flow out. Love yourself. Love life. Love it all.